Yeah, buddy, we are back once again to the show that shatters the silence on men's mental health. We are unedited, unfiltered,
And as always, we are going raw. I'm Anthony.
and my name is Joey.
And I'm Eric, and we're your hosts, and welcome to Raw Minds,
Raw motherfucking minds.
episode 5, season
That's
2.
us.
Yeah, buddy, we on a roll. We on a roll. We told these guys that we ain't going nowhere.
Hell no.
We just keep popping up every week. That's what we do.
And we're all over your social medias.
Oh, yep, we're everywhere. So thank you guys all for tuning in. If you are new to the show and this is your first episode listening to us, we welcome you. Please follow us on basically every social media platform. Hit the like, subscribe, leave comments, leave some input, even throw out some topics that you want us to really dive into and talk about. And yeah, it's welcome if you are new again. We love having you guys. And like I said, we are here every week and we ain't going nowhere.
Exactly. So today we're talking about something that a lot of us deal with, but maybe don't know much about, right? And that's dealing with toxic people in your circle. I think we've
Yeah.
all had that, eh?
Yeah, not even just your circle, man. It's just toxic people in the workplace, toxic people in
Everywhere.
public. You see it all the time, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it's just so soul draining. You know what I
Right.
mean? To have people around you all the time that is just victims and negative and only go off about their problems, but they do nothing about it and complain about life. They gotta be they're the worst, man.
They
They gotta
lack
be the
taking
worst, man.
accountability for their shit. They're always blaming other people. Just real winners at life, the good ones.
Yeah, vampires, man. They'll
Yeah.
suck everything right out of you.
They're energy vampires,
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Huge. But I mean those negative people, man, it comes from deep levels of insecurities, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of that is childhood traumas that comes, shit in their past and why they're so negative all the time. And these people think that the world's out to get them and that life sucks, but I mean your life is what you make of it. Bottom line, period. No matter what's happened to you in your life, I've said this lots before, is you are where you are in your life because of the choices that you make.
Yep.
Right? You put yourself in the position that you're in, regardless of what has happened to you or what, is done to you, what you've been through, and it's really tough, I know, when there's a lot of things that happen to people that's extremely traumatic and it changes you forever. But regardless, it's still up to you on what you do with that going forward. And where you are is a product of the choices that you make from that. And when we're in those deep depressions and the struggles, we're not thinking straight. We make a lot of bad choices, a lot of bad decisions. And when you're in that, like we were, is you stop caring. And that's where you get to that point where people unalive themselves or if contemplating it daily, right? It's because they got to a point where they just stop caring.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, when you stop caring, that's a choice because pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, right?
Ain't that the
So,
truth?
and it is, it's facts. And
Yep.
it's even in that pain and even while you're struggling, you're still making choices. And it might not be the right ones. And it definitely most of the time isn't because you're hurting and you just don't care anymore. But that's still a choice. And those choices, regardless if you're hurting or not, is going to put you to where you are today. right? And like when you
Yep.
go through heartbreaks and traumatic events and all that, it's those choices that either drags that out and affects the rest of your life with the snowball, or do you try to make the better choices to heal from that faster so that the rest of your life doesn't fall off, right? But it's definitely, and we sympathize with it 1,000,000%. Is when you're in that, it's extremely hard to pull yourself up and to get out of bed and to be around people and still go to work. But at the end of the day, is no matter what, is you have to, because
Mhm.
that's what makes you worse, right?
It's
And
true.
that's where people fall into that deep depression, is because it's not just one thing. One thing brings them down to their knees, but once everything else starts to fall off because of that thing, that's when, it's extremely hard to get back up, because now you've allowed everything else in your life to be affected by that,
Well,
right?
let me ask you guys a question here. You guys ever been in a situation where one person just dragged everyone down? And then also, how did it affect you guys or the group that you guys were in?
Anthony?
Yeah, I mean it. The problem
Oh,
is it happens all the time, right? Like we said, there's
Mhm.
people just out in the fucking world that are just vampires, right? Work, I think work is the most common one. And I've dealt with it a lot. And I've been that person too, right? Like in my line of work, like what I do for work, our days are unpredictable until we show up to the job. And I was the type of guy that like I would get to the job, you don't really know what you're in for until you start work. Once you start work,
Yeah.
you kind of know what you're in for your day. And I remember I used to just get like right off the get go, as soon as I knew my day was going to be shit. Like Joey said, you kind of just like step back and look at the whole day, right? And then
Mhm.
I'm miserable all day. But what I've learned to do is just like realize what I'm in for. And it's like, okay, well, being miserable, being that bad apple, being that person that's gonna just like bring everybody else down, that's not gonna improve anything. Like I know it sucks. We all know it's gonna be a shitty day, but just focus on one thing at a time. That's how I kind of tackle that type of stuff. Um, I've had some really hard coworkers to deal with where they just show up in the morning, and like I've had jobs where show up in the morning and I'm working with someone, we're not going to get this job done. It's like, dude, we haven't even got in the fucking truck and left the yard yet. Like, if you're bringing that type of energy now, what do you anticipate the rest of the day looking like? It's one thing to have low expectations. That's fine.
Yeah.
But how you verbalize them and how you perceive them is a different thing, right? Like if your perception is this is gonna suck, we're not gonna get it done today, boo hoo, that's a shitty attitude to have, you know? If you go in with an expectation of, well, I'll go in and I'll do my best and I'll do what I can, and I don't really have an expectation on what's gonna get done, I'll just do what I can when I get there. That's a low expectation that has a more positive perspective than just like thinking we're not gonna get this done. And it's really hard to deal with these types of people because their energy fucking affects yours. Like,
Mhm.
man, I can count so many coworkers that I used to have that were like that, and some that I still do have that are just fucking miserable. And it's like, man, I don't want to work with you. I can be miserable too, but that doesn't mean I have to show it or make it your fucking problem. Like we're there to do a job. We get paid this amount of money, set amount of money to do said job. And when the job's done, the job's done. But sitting here bitching about the job before you've even fucking started it isn't going to help it get any better. So yeah, like work for me, work is the one place that I deal with it a lot. I've gotten really good at trying to remove those types of people from my life. There's a place for certain people at certain parts of my life. If if I need motivation or I need something to fire me up, I'm sure as shit not going to go to those people for it because they're not good for those types of things. They have skill sets, but motivating or pumping you up to get something done, sure as shit ain't one of them. That's my experience with those types of people.
Mhm.
What about you, Joey?
What ab
Well, before I answer Eric's question, uh, there was a study that was done, and it goes basically kind of with what Anthony was just saying, and they called it the bad apple effect. So they took groups of people, random groups of people, and they gave them all tasks to do. And without telling some of the groups, they stuck someone on purpose who is extremely negative into that group, into the task that they're doing. And this person obviously was miserable, complaining, arguing, just all around. That was his job. But the other people didn't know that this person was added. And over the day of tasks that they were given, they found that just in, I think it was 3 hours, the group with the negative person in it, the productivity dropped by 40% compared to the group without it. And it went up 50% with more arguing, more bickering, and more people becoming miserable in 3 hours just because of one fucking person.
Mhm.
And that right there tells you how toxic one person can be on your life. Now, to answer your question, like you deal with that work, we've all dealt with people like that. And I even look at, because I'm a supervisor as well, and I've had people where every day they're bitching and complaining when really I'm looking at their job, I'm like, it's not that fucking hard. What are you complaining for? And just that's just how they are. Right. So we deal with that. But for me, if I would look, like, I remember I had a friend, and he was a good guy, but it did not matter what you were doing. He would find the negative in it. Oh, we're just going over here with a couple people for some wings. You want to come? No, I hate the beer there. I don't want to go. Like, just the dumbest little negative things. Like, he would get mad at me for whistling in public. He's like, "Oh, that's rude for other people." Like, he would just find, like, it didn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just these negative, and it just weared on me. I'm like, I can't hang out with this fucking guy anymore. I like him, but his whole outlook on every situation, invite him somewhere, he'd find a negative in it. I don't want to go there. Oh, their food sucks. You know what I mean? Oh, I don't like their clothes. Like, it didn't matter. It was the negative in all of it. I'm like, don't drink the
Mhm.
beer then. Who gives a shit? And that's you're going for the company. But it
Yeah.
didn't matter, because if it was one thing that he could find that was wrong with the place or whatever it is that we were doing, like, he even came on a trip with me, for example, and to Vegas, and I bought a ticket for my dad for Christmas. He's never been to Vegas. Couple right before COVID. And he came on the trip, dude. He destroyed my trip, and I haven't had a normal holiday in like 13 years. And the whole time was negative. This, I'm like, why are you complaining, man? I'm like, there's all the people in there. Let's go in there. And everyone knows Vegas is expensive. And when you go to a place that you know is already expensive, you're gonna spend the money, and you don't want to spend, like, if you're having beers and they're $15 American, that's ridiculous. But you're on holiday. You're gonna pay for it anyways because that's where you are. I don't want to spend $15 on a beer. Nobody does. But you chose to go here. We're here. Let's have a good time. Let's go have a beer. No, man, I'm not going in there and paying that money. And he wouldn't even go in. Anywhere we went, it didn't matter if it was bar or not. And it was just, dude, like, it just killed my entire trip when I tried my best to just ignore it. But that energy, like, sucked the fucking energy out of me and even my dad.
Did you
And it
leave
was
him
just,
alone? Like, just said,
yeah,
"Fuck this shit"? Like
yeah, yeah. And I'd leave for the night by myself, and I'm walking the strip by myself because my dad's, older, and he's passed out. And I'm sitting in the room. Oh, I don't want to go out. I don't want to do this. I don't. That bar sucks, and there's nobody there, and this, and, like, dude. And it was just fucking just toxic, man. And I'm like, I will never go on a trip again with you ever. Like, we even for another went to the I don't know if you've been to Vegas or not. The Stratosphere, 1,200-foot building.
Yep.
And my bucket
Mhm.
list was to go there and jump off of it because you can jump off of it.
Yeah.
And at the bottom, you got to take the elevator all the way to the top, and there's a bar up top and fucking whatever. He wasn't
Is that
jumping, which
is
is
that the one with the roller coaster that goes around it?
that's on
Right?
top of it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's 1,200 feet above the
Yeah.
above Vegas, right?
Yeah. I saw
And
it when
then
I was there. Yeah.
at the bottom, going up with my dad, and I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go. We'll get the elevator. He can wait up top. I'll jump off, come back up. That was the plan. I don't care if you don't jump, but yeah, and it was $20 to go up if you didn't jump. No, I'm not going up. I'm just gonna walk around. And he just stayed at the bottom. I'm like, do not message me, dude, when I'm up there because I'm not coming down because you're waiting and you're impatient now. Like it's just, oh, dude, it was just bad. So that being said, is whether it's work, whether it's on a trip, whether it's your friend, and even family. So many people have toxic family members, and they think that because it's family, that you know you kind of have to deal with it, even though you don't want to. But you feel obligated because it's family. But I'm telling you that if your family is that toxic, that it is okay to cut them off. It is
Mhm.
okay because if it is draining your mental health and if it was sucking the life out of you, it is okay to distance yourself from that father or brother or whatever. Because I tell you, like one person like that in your life kills your enthusiasm, kills your drive, and it brings you. And then those kind of people, because they're so insecure, are trying to bring you down to their level because you're trying to go here and they're staying down here and they want to drag you back down. And it is so bad. So, negative people in your life, man, is you got to cut them. Doesn't matter who it is, and a part of growth as you get older is there's a saying is that you know that you're growing up is when you start losing friends because a part of that is as you're elevating and bettering yourself, you'll notice these energy suckers trying to bring you back down. And when you get to a point where more confidence and self-worth is that's when you start losing those friends because you realize even though I've been friends with you for 20 years, man, like I can't bring you with me on this journey. I can't, and it's shitty, but I've done it. I've cut off 20-year friends because they're either being disrespectful or just negative all the time, doing the same thing over, complaining about life, playing the
Well,
victim.
a different type too, man, is, drinking, Someone can be totally cool when they're sober, you get along super great, but soon as they got some alcohol in 'em, man, they're a totally different person, and which can put you in bad situations where I've had friends that, totally cool, drinking, totally different person, something happens, now put their other friend in a situation, right? And that's very toxic too. You gotta watch out for that, especially when people abuse, any type of substance.
Oh, for sure, right? And it's just it's all around bad, and then like I said, as you start to grow and you start to realize these things and you're able to start cutting them off is when you're starting to realize that you're growing up and you're on a path and you can't let these people bring you down, family or not, man. That is the worst thing to have in your circle, right? And it's just like you said, like you are your friends. So
Yep.
if all your friends are just negative, playing victim all the time, what do you think you're going to end up being like? Because they suck the energy out of you. Now you're going to be negative all the time, and you're going to start realizing. Because I remember even relationships. I remember dating a girl back in the day, and it was just miserable all the time. Then you think it's you, but it wasn't, and then it's just, dude, like you can't be with these people because they're just so just toxic, and they're going to be toxic in all different ways, right? But
Well,
just
let
in
me
life, like, yeah, it's draining, man.
well, let me ask you guys another question here. Do you guys think it's easy to spot these people early on, or do they just sneak up on you? What do you guys think?
I
I'm
mean,
Can you
I
see
I
the
th-
signs?
I think it depends, like some people are hella good at hiding it, but also
Mhm,
like once I became aware of the behaviors of those types of people, it's a lot easier to spot. But you
mhm.
have to be careful too to like it kind of goes back to our episode last week on like narcissism and stuff. Like if you're an empathetic person, it's very easy to fall into a position with someone, and it doesn't always have to be a relationship. Sometimes it can be with family, right?
Yep,
Or
it's true.
obviously friends or work. But like if you're empathetic and you're willing to show up for these people are going to keep taking if you keep giving, you know? And there's nothing wrong with setting that boundary or detaching from them. But also in that, you don't owe a fucking explanation to anybody. Like to go back to the friends thing, like, yeah, like I'm sorry, but I'll tell you right now, when I'm on my deathbed, I don't want to be surrounded with friends. I want to be surrounded with my loved ones, with my kids.
Mhm.
Like that's
Definitely.
at the end of the day, that's what's important. And I'll tell you right now, those kids have fucking kept me alive on some of my hardest days just by being there. And they don't know that.
Yeah.
I've had some great friends who reach out when they're concerned with for me or just checking in on me. Don't get me wrong, but since I got into recovery, I have one friend who's not in recovery outside of you two, who I have prior to getting sober. His name's Kevin. He's one of my best friends. He was my best friend before I got sober. He's still one of my best friends after I got sober. Aside
Shout
from
out to
that,
Kevin.
man, yeah, shout out Kevin. Aside from that, man, I've got only friends in recovery. I've got some really close friends in recovery. Now, in saying that, Kevin's not someone I'm going to talk to about recovery stuff because he doesn't fucking get it. And that's okay. And again, that's kind of the important part about understanding the place that people have in your life, and
Mhm.
especially with family. Like I've got two brothers. There's certain things I trust brother A with. There's certain things I trust brother B with. There's certain things I'd call brother A for. There's certain things I'd call brother B for. But there's also things I would call you guys for before I call my fucking brothers,
Mhm.
right? You guys show up. You guys understand the struggles. They don't understand the struggles the way that you guys do. You're allowed to position people in your life where they fit and where they're important. You know, there's there's a difference between calling a friend because you're having a bad day and you just need to offload some shit on them like we do, but going to someone just to bitch about something and being that person to them only, that's being that bad apple, and you don't want to be that bad apple.
There is a thin line, though, I'd have to say, definitely, on just having a bad day to being that bad apple. I mean, yeah, okay, you had a bad day, you bitch about it, you're venting, okay, yeah, that's totally cool. But
Yeah,
when
man.
it's, like, ongoing and ongoing, you know what I mean? That shit spreads, and then the next day, this guy's gonna feel like it, and then the next day, this one, and so on until the whole job site or wherever you're at is all toxic. We say job site because 'cause we're in construction, but I
Yeah.
mean, wherever you're at, it just spreads, like Joey said, with the bad apple effect.
Oh,
Dude,
a
we've
million
literally got a
percent.
guy at work right now that nobody wants to work with him because of his attitude. He takes no
Yeah.
accountability. He's an older guy, and don't get me wrong, like, he's been doing this a lot longer than I have. He's in it more inexperienced than me, but he has no desire to do anything above and beyond his simple tasks that he's been given. And if something goes wrong, even if it was his job, the first thing he's like, it's an inside joke between the boss and I. Like, if it's something that he did, well, sorry, I'm just the laborer. I'm number two. Like, it doesn't fall on me. It's like
Yeah.
nobody wants to work with you, man. Like, sure, you can be an all right guy, but if you have that fucking attitude at work, I don't want to be around you.
Yeah,
Like, if you
definitely.
can't own simple shit, then why the fuck would I want to be around you?
How about you, Joey?
100%. Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, Eric, there's a big difference from negative feelings and being a negative person,
Mhm.
right? Because there is days where you want to vent and you want to talk. Like I had a pretty rough day today. I'll talk to you after or whoever because I'm having, people have hard days. People are allowed to be angry. They're allowed to be stressed out. They're allowed to be sad,
Yep.
right? And if I'm calling you because I have a problem, that's not me being negative. That's me looking for advice, looking for a shoulder for a minute or two or for a day or two. But if I'm coming to you with the same problem week after week, complaining and complaining and complaining, and I'm not making any changes, well, that's a me problem. That's me just being a negative piece of shit and complaining about life,
Yep.
right? And being miserable in my own and with where I'm at in my own life. And majority of people are like that. Like, okay, well, what are you doing about it? Why are you complaining all the time? You say you want to lose weight and you're tired of looking the way that you do, but are you going to the gym? No, you're not. You're just complaining.
Mhm.
I'm not happy with myself and no one likes me and this and bull like it's just it's horrible, man. It's toxic. Like those people right there, just shut up. I'm just telling you right now, if you're listening, you're that person, just shut up. Because only you can make the changes in your life. If something's not going right for you in your life and you have control over that, then you have control over changing that. But also, a lot of that is there's a lot of hard work that goes behind some of that. And people don't want to do that because they're too comfortable and just existing, right?
Yep. It's true, man.
So instead of being, they look at like a heart rate monitor. They just live their life with like a flat line with like a little bump and then a severe drop and maybe a little bump, severe drop. And that's, you know what I mean? Why not have it like a freaking stock market chart where you're skyrocketing? That should be your life. But people don't want to put in that work because they're comfortable. It's too hard. But again, we've said how many times we said this? Pick your heart. That's it. Stop being negative. Do you like living like this every day? Do you like when people don't want to be around you? Do you like when your kids don't want to hang out with dad because he's miserable all the time and he's always yelling at us and he's always throwing things and he's just never smiles and he's never happy because you're just pouting all the time? Like there's a difference from struggling and being negative. Big difference. Like if you're struggling about something, that's a huge difference than just being that person. And the ones that are struggling, or sorry, the ones that are complaining all the time, those are the people that have shit that they just never dealt with. And that's why they're like that, because they're miserable. And then I'm like this because of that person and what they did to me 6 years ago, and they hold on to it. I know we talked about this with anger. When you stick, you take a bowling ball and walk around with it and stick what you're angry about on that bowling ball and see how much that weighs you down. And that's
Mhm.
these people. They're just carrying around all this weight with everything they're angry about, everything that they're upset about, miserable about, but they're not doing anything about it. So all they're doing is carrying this weight all the day, every day. And that's why they're so negative all the time. So they suck the energy out of you to bring you to their level because they're not happy with themselves and the choices they made. And they know it. They know they got to get up and go to the gym. They know that they don't feel happy at their job. They know that they're not happy where they're living, but they just choose not to get up and put in the work. So it's
Yep.
again, it's pick your heart. You want to be miserable the rest of your life and just nobody wants to be your friend anymore and talk to you and hang out with you? Or do you want to actually grind for 6 months to a year, find a purpose, get off your ass, put in the hard work? Damn right it's hard. But think of what you get on the outside of that. Because I'm living proof of that. I lived that negative mindset. I was struggling. I was negative. Like just like people on the internet that goes out of your way to throw shade because I was fucking miserable at my life. Miserable. But then I got to a breaking point where I'm like, I can't be like this anymore. So I made the change and it was the hardest thing I ever did. But I chose that hard. And because of that, I can sit here tonight with both of you talking to all these people and never in 20 years of trauma and suicide attempts ever thought that I can be in the mindset and clarity in my head that I have today because of that.
Mhm.
And most of you people listening, you can get there too, but choose your heart.
So
What which one's harder?
what would you guys say was like your pivotal point? This is kind of just outside of the bad apple thing, but like what would you say was like your pivotal moment that changed your mindset? Like what was it that
That's
like
easy.
yeah, go ahead.
My daughter, straight up my daughter. Knowing that I was gonna be a father, that was the biggest change of my life and made me the person I am today. No
Nice.
questions asked. Definitely.
What about you, Joey?
I when I really think back at the hard times is the worst times is when I was already a father, and I held on, just like you said earlier, that your kids kept you going and they didn't know that. And my kids, like, I got to a point at one point where I tried to kill myself, and I already had my son when he was about 9 months old. And I fought every day knowing that I would leave him without a father. And when you get to that point where you don't want to wake up anymore, you are so far gone that you're in so much pain mentally that even your family and your close friends can't hold on to you and keep you going. So I would love to say it was my kids saved my life, and the reason I'm here today is because of my son. But you know, a lot of people make the same mistake over and over, and they don't learn their lesson. I kept making the same mistake over and over, and I kept self sabotaging my own life. I kept self sabotaging my own relationships, and it took, I would say, 12 years after being a father where my last relationship failed, and I broke with from that and from all the other things that I was dealing with, to the point where it was so bad. And I mentioned this along, if you're listening, like I spent 5 days in my bedroom and I lost 30 pounds in 6 days. That was my breaking point where I wasn't learning. I made the mistake over and over to the point where a lot of people get to where they would unalive themselves. So thank God. But that point was my kids that brought me back from that. And I said, I can't do this anymore. So even when you have your children, that definitely changes your life. Sometimes you're in a place where children or not, you, you can't even lift your head up. So it took me years of making the mistake, same mistake. And every time I did it, I knew I did it. I'm like, you did it again. But yet I kept doing it until that was the life changer for me, where it really blew up in your face, and we always try to preach, you make the change before you have to change. And I didn't do that. I waited until it was so bad that I then had to change. So it took all of that, of constant making mistakes, to really come out of that, to make that change.
Well,
But
you
you
gotta hit
made the
rock
change.
bottom, right?
Yeah, you made the change.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of with you, Joey. Like I I realized after I got sober that I couldn't get sober for my kids. I don't know if I've shared this with you guys because I don't share this too often because it still kind of fucking rubs me the wrong way. But when my son was born, I didn't love him for like the first 6 months because I knew where I was in my head, and it wasn't anywhere near being in a position to be a father. I couldn't even be a father to his sister who was 4 years old at that time. So trying to bring another child into my life at the time that he was born was not. I knew I wasn't anywhere near where I should be. And then it took me 2 years after he was born to finally go out and get sober. And when I went to rehab, like, cuz I had tried to get sober, I had tried to fix my life doing it the way that I thought I should be doing it, and nothing had worked. And then when I got to rehab and I started learning some stuff about recovery and about myself, and one of the things that I was told was like, you can't get sober for anybody else other than yourself. Nobody can get you sober. You can't get sober for your kids. You can't get sober for your relationship. You can't get sober. Like the therapists aren't going to get you sober. Your parents aren't going to get you sober. None of that shit's going to get you sober. Like you have to want it for yourself. And for me, 24 hours before I was in rehab, I was on suicide watch in the hospital. So I had gotten to a point where I was so fucking sick of the shit that I was doing that I didn't want to be here anymore. So I had beaten myself into a state of complete fucking surrender. I give up, man. Like nothing I'm gonna do is gonna fix myself. And then that's kind of where, for me, like you had said, Eric, it was my rock bottom. Like I didn't want to be here. I wasn't a good father. I wasn't going to work. I was doing all this stuff I wasn't supposed to do. And that's kind of like what opened the door for me into being introduced to what the potential of a change could look like. And in recovery, like I got a sponsor, I got a man who's been a part of my life for the last 3.5 years. And on Thursday, I'm going up to Toronto because it's his 8-year celebration. And this guy was a fucking heroin junkie and he's been sober for 8 years. So when I started talking to this gentleman, he would have been 5 years sober at the time. And he was telling me about his shit. I could identify with all of it, man. I could identify with the feelings. And that's what it was with you guys. Like I can identify with all the feelings, that severe hopelessness, that being fucking angry, that depression, the anxiety, like being so crippled with anxiety that I couldn't even leave my house at one point, like not sleeping because of the anxiety, laying down in bed and your fucking brain turns on at 11:30 at night. It's like, oh, now it's time to think. We haven't thought all day. We've been just on autopilot all day, but now that we're laying down and we're supposed to be resting, let's just fucking fire this thing on all cylinders, you know? And that's what it was for me. It was fucking giving up on my own ideas and like finally succumbing to the idea that I actually need help, but also being willing to accept that help when it was offered, because as men, we're so, it's so instilled in us that like we've got to figure this out, and not just for us, but for our kids, for our relationship, for everybody. That's what's instilled in us. Like we are the providers, like we're the rock, we're the protectors, we're all these things, but we're all of these things for everybody else except for ourselves, right?
Well,
So
let me.
who's
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, 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 no. Go. I just wanted to ask you guys a question then on this.
Mhm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I thought you were
No, that's
done
okay,
there.
man. That's all good.
Um, have you guys ever caught yourself picking up someone else's bad vibes without realizing it? I got a follow-up question after that, after your answers.
Picking up their vibes,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like,
or like
the
you mean like
toxicity.
or you mean like becoming like them?
Yeah, yeah, because like they're being toxic, that shit spreads, obviously. So have you ever noticed yourself picking that up?
Oh, 100%
Yeah.
relationships. Like I mentioned
Yeah,
earlier about a girl I dated and just negative all the time. Like nothing made her happy. It was just didn't matter what she did. You try to help, you try to, and a lot of people are like that in relationships. Like, your other person's supposed to be there to, push you sometimes and be supportive. And it didn't didn't matter what I did. And then of course, then you think the worst, like it's all me, it's all me. She's like this because of me, and then just that negative, didn't want to go out, didn't like that person, didn't like this person, wasn't gonna go there now. Like it rubs off where I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to see this person. I didn't want to hang out with them just because it was just that's what she was like. And when my friends all pulled me aside, like, dude, you're becoming her, was a big wake up call because like you said, is you are who you hang out with, and you don't notice it yourself sometimes. And when you're beside someone all the time, or you're with that friend all the time, you don't realize that you're starting to become them.
yeah. Did you
And you think
confront her
it's
ever about it?
oh yeah, well then I ended up leaving her.
Yeah.
But
How did that go? Like, when you try to confront her about it?
oh, it's not you, don't worry, it's nothing, it's nothing. And it's just no accountability, just it was one of those, right? And I just
Yeah,
and it took people from the outside to be like, you are changing, dude. Like you're not happy. You and when you're with someone all the time, just like, a friend that you hang out with all the time, you don't realize it because they're the same. So when you're the same, how can you point that out? Right? Because you're with them all the time. So that's rubbing off on you and you don't even realize it until other people are like, man, like, what's wrong with you, man? Like, are you all right? And it was like that in the relationship. So definitely in a relationship, and even some friends, like I mentioned, the friend, like even in your closer friend group at the time, until you
Mhm.
even when you get to a point and you can notice it, like, man, I'm starting to fucking be miserable. And it's just because of one person, man, or a group.
Mm.
And just
Yep.
like at work, like Anthony said, one guy, it changes, like, especially in management, because it starts at the top. And if you're like for construction, head superintendent, if he's a miserable prick all day, dude, that entire job site feels that.
Mm-hmm.
The entire job site.
Oh,
If
yeah,
he's
it
yelling,
spreads.
million percent it does.
Yep.
People are bad energy, people are avoiding him, walking around, and it starts to bring you down. And then you realize 2, 3, 4 months into your job, and you're staying there, like, you're now miserable because I've done the shittiest jobs with the best people, and it made that job so much easier. And you
Fucking
didn't
right.
think about it because they were great people. And I've done great jobs with the worst management ever. And I hated going to work, but I really liked the job. But every day I woke up, I did not want to go to work
And
because of the
that'll
people.
ruin you. Like that alone, the people that you work with. So to answer your question, Eric, about like other people rubbing off on you, I used to work with a guy who was, like I said, negative from the moment he showed up to work. And it got to the point where I had the most fuck it attitude ever because it's like this guy's miserable. He doesn't give a shit. So why would I give a shit? And then we're
Mhm.
getting callbacks for quality because I don't. If he's not gonna fucking care, what's the point in me caring? And same thing. I'm just a miserable fuck by the end of the week because of who I'm working with. And let's be honest, I didn't do anything to change it. I didn't make an effort in to change it. So I'm equally as guilty as him. But still, like it's so easy to be infected by these types of things, and that's the statistic that you shared at the beginning, Joy. Like that's what it is. That's what it causes. So like to
Mhm.
put it plain and simple, just even if your fucking day sucks, just try to be positive.
Well, what do you guys would say would be your approach? Do you think it would be better to confront them directly if, like, this person's being negative, or just distance yourself from it?
Uh, Personally, it depends. Like
Mhm.
where I'm at now in my life in general is like I will cut you like cancer. Like I am in such a good place that you can't bring me down. And if you are one of those people that try, I will either cut you out, or if it's someone that I have to deal with, like at
Yeah,
work,
for work, yeah.
I'm at the point where I'll just tell you to your face to shut up because I can't stand listening to you bitch and whine, right? And then if I like my family's not like that, but a lot of family members are, is you got to be able to distance yourself and cut it. You have to, because
Well
it's always their problem, and because especially with family, you feel like obligated to keep trying to help them when they're not helping themselves.
well, if you tell them to shut up, do you think that they're gonna change, though, or do you think it's just gonna make it more like, once toxic, always toxic?
Uh, I think they would. Again, it depends on the people, the atmosphere, where you're at, but majority, because a lot of people don't say nothing and they just walk, or they just like, I don't want to deal with this guy, so they say nothing. But if it's in your face, sometimes people need to be called on their shit in
Like a
order for them
bully.
to and so that they can realize that they're actually being like that. Because I
Mhm.
was called on my shit before and I didn't realize I was being like that. But once
Yeah.
I was reminded, hey, dude, what's your fucking problem? Then I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize. I'm really sorry. Because you get those, right? Like, I apologize, man. I didn't realize I was like that for so long. Let me try to make it better, be more aware of it. So some people would buy, some people need that blunt truth. Like, what is your fucking problem? Do you hate life? What is it? Because we're tired of listening to it. So sometimes you need to be like that with certain people. Most people, they don't want confrontation, right? Nobody really likes confrontation. But if you don't give the blunt truth sometimes to people, they would never know. So that's why they keep doing it. And sometimes when you get that in someone's face, then people are like, shit, maybe he's right. What's wrong? Maybe, and then maybe that could be the stepping stone to that guy realizing that he's got some issues he needs to figure out. Right. So it depends. But for me at this point, man, if you're in my face and I can't ignore you, dude, I'm going to tell you, like, dude, just shut up. And just like I said to the people listening, if you're like that and you complain about your life and you do nothing about it and it's always poor me, or you're acting like a victim in a problem that you've created, just shut up. Just stop. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like nobody's gonna feel sorry for you. I'm sorry.
let me
I
ask you
will
this,
I
Anthony.
will help
Oh,
you. So if you want to make changes and I'm able to help in some way, and you're tired of feeling this way, or you're tired of, you don't know where to look, you're trying to find a new job, whatever it is, and I'm able to somehow help you, I'm in. Let's do it. Let me help you. But if you're just gonna bitch and whine every week and just poor me, like, dude, just get away from me, man. I'm not even gonna answer your phone calls. I'm sorry.
well, okay, like we talked on earlier, sometimes you don't know, maybe someone's just going through something, right? Maybe they're stressed, depressed, whatever. Anthony, where is the thin line of being empathetic and protecting yourself from negativity, do you think? Like, where would you draw the line?
Oof. So first of all, I think that everybody needs to be called on their shit if that's the type of person that they are, regardless of
Mhm.
being comfortable with confrontation or not. If you're not comfortable confronting someone for their toxic behavior, you are enabling that toxic behavior.
I
You're
agree.
allowing it to happen. So really, how upset can you be? And I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. But like Joey said, like a lot of times people probably don't even realize that they're like that, so acknowledging it,
I'm aware. Yeah.
yeah, making them aware, like, hey, you're kind of being a dick. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so pissy today? Right? But in terms of knowing the fine line, I mean, it's all in how you approach it, right? Like if
I guess
if
the
this
situation too. Every situation's a little different, right? So,
yeah, the situation, it can be different, but also like it boils down to like how you communicate. Like if you're going to communicate
mhm.
effectively, you can do it without being a complete prick about it.
Yeah,
Some people literally just need to be told to shut the fuck up. But also, you can approach a situation very calm, very demure, as the fucking kids on
Fuck.
TikTok are saying these days.
Oh
the
god.
mirror.
Demure,
Oh
that's a
buddy.
new thing.
I can't. Like these so many.
But yeah,
Anyways.
it all depends on how you approach it, right? If you can approach it with respect and set boundaries healthily and
Mhm.
communicate effectively, then I don't see a situation where that can't be accomplished.
I agree.
Regardless of someone being miserable or you protecting yourself, either way you look at it, that's an effective approach in either situation.
I
If the
agree.
person if their reaction is a negative reaction, cool. That's when you set the boundary for yourself and you're not doing a disservice to anybody by doing that, especially yourself. That's when you detach. That's when you tell them to get the fuck away from you. But at least if you approach it in a respectful and open-minded manner and communicate effectively, you're at least leaving the door open for them to you're at least giving them an opportunity to handle it the same way that you want to handle it. If they
Mhm,
don't,
mhm.
fucking see you later. Thanks for your time. Don't fucking talk to me.
Well, what do you guys think about how would you, um, change this? Like, how could you see this coming? Say you see it coming. What do you think you guys could do to keep things positive to prevent someone from, poisoning either the group you're in or the workspace or whatever it may be? What kind of tools do you think, you could suggest that you've guys used in the past to, help change that around?
Well, I think it goes kind of, how I always say, when you can't find good people, be good people. Well, it
Definitely.
kind of relates the same. Now, if you're toxic all the time, the tools that you would use is to be complete opposite of that, and even have like a sarcastic side to that, where you're just overly positive, where it brings them down. If that makes any sense. Like you just can't let them affect
Killing
you
with
with,
love
yeah,
Kill
like
'em with
kill them with
kindness.
kindness.
or
But you
kindness,
have that
whatever, yeah.
almost that sarcastic tone to it, where you're just super happy and just overly happy, trying to like, you know what I mean? Like knock out their negativity. And
Boost
it
them
just
up.
kind of, yeah. And then, or you're just genuinely be that good people regardless.
Mhm.
Right? And be able to tune that out because a lot of these toxic people, like, you know, like Anthony was saying, like, you know, how you approach them, how you talk to them, blah, and whatever. But a lot of these toxic people, and that's why they're abusive in relationships. That's why they have anger issues, is because they can't regulate their emotions properly. Right. So you can't have a normal conversation with these people who are like that all the time because that's stemming from their childhood problems and their past traumas. And that's why they're so angry all the time and negative all the time. The only difference is those people have never dealt with it.
Yeah.
So that's how they become like that because you're not born negative. You know, this is all shit that we're learned or things that have happened that has been created in your upbringing, the things that has happened to you, right? So these toxic people is people that just didn't deal with their problems ever. And that's where the anger and the toxicity comes out because they chose not to take responsibility from the choices they made in their life. So now they're projecting on everybody else and sucking that energy out of everybody else,
Yep.
right?
Vampires, man.
Because toxic people will always focus on your reactions rather than, you know, to talking about it, right? Well, why are
Yep.
you being like that? Why are you this? Because it takes away from them taking responsibility, right?
True that.
What would be your answer to that question? You've been firing off solid questions the whole episode, Eric. Let's hear one of your answers, bud.
Um, Communication, man. You know, straight up, like you guys said, I would just talk to him, be like, "Hey, man, like, what's going on right now to put you in this mood?" You know, try to maybe figure out where this is stemming from, where it's coming from, because maybe the guy's wife died, and he's just not open up, and he's having a bad day or a bad week or even a bad fucking year. It's all about. We always say this, man. Everybody is going through some shit. You know, we're all everybody. Don't judge all the time. Maybe that person is just having a hard time, and you just need to communicate and figure it out. Maybe you could be life changing for him. You never know. I mean, we have on this podcast, we've had people reach out to us. We've never met them before, but just stuff resonates what we talk about. So you just never know. And it's all about that, man, communicating, and maybe there's something deeper.
And two, I think there's a difference when like someone you work with or someone you're dating or a friend, because you see it all the time. So you know the difference. But like you said, when it's people you just meet and they could be really struggling because we don't
Mhm.
know what they're going through, you know,
Yep.
and that's why, like I said, if you can't find the good people to be the good people, right? Pay it forward.
Yep.
You know, when next time you're in drive through, pay for the coffee behind you. That right there, that small gesture, that $5 you just spent could have made somebody's day. Huge. That's some because for all you know, that person thinks that they got nobody, thinks that nobody loves them, thinks that they got no friends, and they think that they're alone. And then just the act of kindness, and it is we talk, you know, we've mentioned this a few times. Like it is so easy to be a good person. It is so easy,
Simple.
You know,
and
the
when
other
you're a
thing
good,
that's cool to think about too, though, is like everybody's got a story, right?
Mhm.
Everybody got to where they are way or another. So, like, just being kind, like, fucking sit and talk to someone. Like, Joey, I remember you talking about the gentleman you met on the lake. You remember talking about that guy? Like, like if you didn't take that fucking 20 seconds to have a simple conversation with that guy, you wouldn't have had a clue what was going on. Like, everybody out there has a story. And like you'd be amazed at some of the shit that people have been through. I used to have a neighbor. He was he was in a concentration camp. He had the fucking tattoo, the number on his wrist. Don't get me wrong, he was senile as fuck. He was like 98 years old. He was
Oh, you
crazy,
have to
but
be. Yeah.
yeah, he was crazy. before he passed, but like, man, if I would have just assumed as him as a crazy old man next door, I never would have got to hear the story that I heard about him like fleeing Poland and all that shit. Because I took the time to just, and I was young. I was like 15 or 16 at this point, but I took the time to have a conversation with someone. Like it literally costs nothing to be fucking kind, even if you're in a bad mood.
And when you're in a bad mood and people are starting to be kind to you, what does that do to you? It kind of brings you up a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And know that, most of the time that the people are in a bad mood or just being negative is it you're pouring that onto people that didn't create that, right? And people don't realize it. They just come home and take it out on their wife, take it out on their kids, miserable, yelling, don't care, break a couple things. You know what I mean? But man, if you take the time out of your day to just be kind, do something, you'll notice the energy shift. When someone's holding the door for you, or you're saying just a simple thank you, let me get that for you, let me help you. You need, do you want me to help you cross the street to an old lady? Fuck, dude, it's not hard. It really isn't. And it's really sad because most people are not like that, especially today. And it really bothers me that you go out there and you just see these people that don't even say thank you when you hold the door open for them going into a store.
Yeah, I hate
Like,
that.
just it drives me up the wall. Or you stop, that's not a crosswalk, and you can tell that you're letting people cross the street. They don't even give you a wave. That just drives
Manners.
me nuts. It drives me nuts. Simple
Yeah.
little thing. Thank you. How's your day? Have a good day. Now I walk by people now. Hey, good morning. Because I'm out at 4 in the morning doing my 75 hard again with my buddy. And there is a couple joggers at 4:30 in the morning. Or people, like, I see the same old guy walking by. Hey, good morning. Nothing. Dirty look. Like, is it that difficult just to say good morning? You know? And if you're like that at 4:30 in the morning, I bet you the rest of his day is garbage.
To be fair,
Because
I'd
that
probably be like that at 4:30 in the morning too.
Yeah,
Quite
me
honestly.
too.
Here's one,
Yeah.
because you guys were construction. I know you guys had one at some point in your life. You ever have that old fucker, you don't know where he came from, but he's been there since before you got there, and he's just a miserable old fuck, but he's the funniest person you ever met? He's
So
like,
he's talking about Rory.
yeah, textbook bad apple, but he's the funniest fucking person you ever met.
Yeah, definitely. Me and Joey know a guy we worked with. A guy, remember Rory there?
yeah.
The old guy. He was grumpy, man. Nobody wanted to work with him. But you know what? I got along with these guys. I understand, man. The guy's seen some shit. The guy was in
Yeah,
Vietnam, bro. You know what I mean?
yeah, he's
I just
allowed to
give
be
it right
fucking
back to him.
grumpy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man. You know what I mean? But I got along with him. I mean,
I
I had a great time. But yeah, he was just old and grumpy. And I mean,
mhm,
who the fuck wants to be doing carpentry at 60 years old? No wonder he's
yeah,
grumpy, man. You know what I mean? I feel it
yeah,
and I understand it and totally okay. You're allowed to be grumpy, brother.
Well, and two is like humor always comes from a dark place, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
And any comedian will tell you that. Robin Williams said that. It comes from a dark place because you're trying to make everybody else laugh when you're struggling, right? Thinking that you're making yourself feel better, but like, most people, like, they're dying inside. But if they're the loudest and happiest in the room, I bet you he's got the most problems,
mhm.
guaranteed,
Definitely.
right? So,
That's why
it,
they always say, "Check on your funny friends." They're
million
hurting, man.
percent,
Mhm.
yeah, boys. But I don't know. What do you think, boys? I
I
think
gotta
this
take a
was
piss, bro. That's what I'm thinking.
Alright, we out. Love you. See you next week. No, just kidding. No, we'll close it out. That was a
I'm
really good
playing, I'm
episode.
playing. Yeah, I
That
enjoyed
was
it,
a
man.
really good
Always a
episode, man.
pleasure with you guys.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, boys. I genuinely did. Much
I had a
needed
lot
too.
of questions for you guys. I was just fucking like a machine gun. Bam, bam, bam,
I
bam.
know. I saw that fucking interviewer over here.
Yeah, buddy, I did my research.
Yeah, I just want to say to you guys, like, this to me is therapy. You know,
Yeah.
I need this probably more than you guys would realize. and I'm sure you guys have your moments too where this is important. I mean, that's a shitty way to say that. Holy fuck. Like we know this is important, but this has a bigger meaning than just coming on here and shooting the shit for an hour. You know what I mean? Like this thing to me is free therapy. And
100%.
the listeners to me are the validation that this thing is important, you know? So like if you are listening, like we fucking care. We want to hear from you. We want to hear the successes, we want to hear the struggles. We want to hear it all.
Mhm.
Like we're here for a reason, and the reason is to help people, but also to fucking cheer you on when things are going good. Right? So if you guys are struggling, or if you guys just want to fucking celebrate, man, hit us up. Come on the show. Shoot us an email. At the beginning, Joey told you the email. I'll say it again, rawmindspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on all social media platforms. You know, shoot us a message. We all have TikTok. It's rawminds.erick, rawminds.anthony, rawminds.joey, and we have Raw Minds Podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We're everywhere, and we're not going anywhere. All right? It doesn't cost anything to be fucking kind. So tomorrow, go out and do something kind for somebody. Thanks for being a part of this, guys. I love you.
Peace.
Bye.